I think that something that I'm sure the board has got some interest in, will need to make a decision shortly, is how to structure this whole subject at election time. So I pulled this report from Stiefel, who had done this back in 2013. It's on the screen, and you have a full report contained in the pocket of your binder. And I pulled just some selected information that I thought the board would be interested in. The first one is, what is the passage rate of different kinds of elections? And the research done in this report indicate that the passage rate, as you can see in the bullet points at the bottom that summarize this information, is bonds have a much higher likelihood of passage than any of the other type elections that you might contemplate. And that's reflected in the data itself when you see that there's a 95% passage rate of bonds, a 54% passage rate of capital outlay overrides, and there was in that 03 to 07 period a fairly high passage rate on M&O overrides. But as you move further out in time to 07 to 12, things change a bit. The bond success rate is still pretty high, 84%. Capital outlay override success has declined below 50. And the M&O override, which is significant, has dropped from 87% to 55%. So as you see, people talk about just barely passing the election at 51-49 and 52-48. That's reflective of that 07 through 12 period. And that's as we move through the recession, et cetera. The outlook for many elections, especially M&O, and this district well knows, we're not good. And that data reports that same thing. And we're not good not only for us, but they weren't good for a lot of other people. When you move to the question of whether or not to have two elections at one time, two ballot questions, one for an override and one for a bond, some people would speculate that diminishes your chances of passage. Others would speculate that it enhances your position of passage. So, according to this data here, the answer is it enhances the ability to pass elections. When there was a single question asked for, 68% of the bonds passed, but when there were two questions, 83% of the bonds passed. And when you move over to the capital outlay override, even though it's got a low passage success, it even was enhanced when two questions were asked rather than one, and significantly enhances, apparently, the M&O override from 44% up to a 59% passage rate. So it clearly indicates from the actual election results that asking two questions at the same time is actually better and gives the district a greater chance of passing both than not. Then the question recently now arises about whether it's better to have polling places or whether it's better to have an all-mail election. The data would indicate that the passage rate for all-mail is higher, which surprised me a bit. It's higher than it is for polling places. And I would have thought because of the visiting schools, et cetera, that you might have a reverse of that, but that's apparently not the case. So it would indicate that not only is the all-mail election cheaper by $50,000 or so, as you saw previously, but it also enhances the district's success rate by doing it all-mail. And I have pretty good confidence in this report. Brian knows the people as I do that did this report. They're very, very thorough and very knowledgeable about what they're reporting here. So that, I thought, was some good information for the board to have, so that as you ponder which of these decisions and how to make them, then you've got that information to use. So that kind of concludes the override, and I think we're open to any questions that you might have.